particles.
What's up? This is another episode of Design Over Time. This is a daily video log series in which I talk about game design. It's pretty simple. Every day we tackle another topic. We talk about things we talked about in the past. Sometimes we build on some things, but ultimately you get something new every day. And today's episode, we are going to be talking about Assault Android Cactus. Yeah, so Assault Android Cactus is a twin-stick shooter. It's a relatively simple genre of video game. You move around, you shoot enemies, you survive, and if you feel up to it, you go for high scores, or you try to combo the enemies. Today's episode in particular, I wanted to talk about two major parts of the design of this game. I'm not going to be talking too much about low-level stuff. I'm not going to be talking about level design. This game has tons of levels, it has great bosses, but I really want to focus on the design space right here of the characters, and not so much the balance between them, but mostly the variation that's involved in between the different character classes. Right here, variation. Yeah, the range and differences between any number of gameplay elements. In this case, we're talking about the individual characters, which we call androids, Assault Android Cactus. But those are the major topics. We're going to be flying through them pretty quickly, so I want to start off with just the design space. So Assault Android Cactus has a design space of 9 characters, and the entire character design space is made up of moving and shooting. So all the characters are defined by how they move and how they shoot, but in this particular game you move with the left analog stick and there's really nothing more to it. You just kind of move around, you point where your character goes. It does have analog movement, but there are no special techniques, there's no command inputs, there's no dodges or anything like that with the left stick. It's just pretty much you walk in a direction and that takes care of that. So moving is the same for all the characters. So in terms of design space, we're already off to an interesting start where every single thing that differentiates these characters has to come from how they shoot. So shooting, you point with the right stick to aim your character in the direction that you want, and then you hold the right trigger and bullets come out. Pretty self-explanatory. The weapons have infinite ammo. They can be powered up if you collect these little white energy crystals. And the sub-weapon is a powerful alternative weapon, and it recharges on its own, kind of like Kid Icarus Uprising. Yeah, so the major attributes for determining all these different weapons that differentiate all these different characters is, what you might commonly expect in shooting games: damage, range, splash damage, homing, speed of the bullets or the projectiles, the arc that they move, and fire rate. So let's take a look right here at the character select. Cool, this is our first main character, Cactus. The game is named after her. She has an assault rifle, which is a shoot straight bullets, as you can see down there, and a flamethrower, which does a ton of damage, but you have to get close. And then we go over here. Holly has seeker shots, and they're weaker, but you don't have to aim them as much because they each have a homing attribute. But then her cannonball is a really slow firing weapon that actually has enough strength to cut through multiple really strong enemies and travel very slowly in a straight line. So Holly is pretty cool for players who are really good at aiming at moving targets with really slow moving projectiles. You have to really set your aim ahead of where they're going to be and line up your enemies and do all this stuff like that. Lemon has a standard Contra style spread shot, but her rockets have splash damage, which makes them really powerful. Coral has a shotgun, and then the plasma field is really cool for you basically set a trap behind you, and any enemy that enters that field, they get pushed back, they take damage, and the bullets that they fire bend according to the spherical energy plasma field. So that's cool too. Lots of little subtle properties. Starch has a hit scan laser, so whatever you point at and hold the fire on, they take continual damage. And then these micro missiles that like to they have an arc, so they can even go around enemies or other geometry as they seek their target, and they have homing on them, so that's pretty cool. I don't even know how to pronounce this. Avergine has a drone that you control. It's like a melee attack that you can control with the left stick, and then a black hole to make sure that all the people get sucked into one point, so you can use the melee attack better. Shiitake has a sniper rifle, really powerful single hit gun that has a really long sort of firing rate. So you have to really take careful aim with Shiitake, and it's really hard to keep a combo going, but the gun is pretty powerful. And then the propeller mines, you set those behind you and then they explode and they do a lot of damage to nearby enemies and they explode on proximity. Peanut, magma, it's kind of like a continuous close range high damage shot, and then the Giga Drill has high movement. Ooh, I didn't even know I had hats. Never seen that before. And then the Giga Drill, you fly in a direction and drill through targets, and then when you collide into a wall with the drill, it does extra damage, so you're trying to pin enemies into the wall. And then Licorice. Slow moving, powerful, single shots for the primary weapon. The second weapon is a teleporting melee attack. So yeah, they all have different attributes, they all do sort of different attack ranges, different amounts of damage, different firing rates, different arcs. The little switch move where you switch into your secondary weapon, that's pretty much an invincible dodge, which is neat. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but the timing for that is the same for all the characters. So all the characters move the same, all the characters switch the same, and everything is differentiated by their primary and secondary weapons. So take a moment here to talk about anti-spam design. This is something that I always talk about with every kind of shoot 'em up, because I don't think it's as interesting to have a game where you just hold the button and that's all you do from start to finish. There's got to be reasons to aim well, reasons to shoot, and reasons not to shoot, even if they're not particularly frequent. Breaking up that sort of monotonous hold the button down action is pretty important. So Assault Android Cactus does three major things. Switching between primary and secondary weapons, even though it's a dodge, you cannot fire. So you take a little bit of invincibility, but you stop firing, and then your secondary weapons, you can't even do this switch if you are out of ammo on your secondary weapons. So if you completely use it and then you want to do the dodge back and forth and switch, you can't. You gotta wait till it recharges. And then there are some enemies that pop and they send more enemies at you, so you don't necessarily want to trigger them early. And some enemies explode in a dangerous radius, so sometimes it's better to back up and get some distance before attacking them directly, and that's pretty cool. And then there's anti-turtling design, and one of my least favorite parts about Geometry Wars is the fact that most of the game, for most of the encounters until it gets really, really hard at the end, is that you just move in a big circle and you fire behind you. And this is kind of like the default strategy for all twin stick shooters. So I'm always interested in what game designers can do, what games can do to help combat that sort of turtling runaway style gameplay. And for Assault Android Cactus, battery energy is required to avoid the game over state. So batteries drop periodically after destroying enough enemies. That means you got to get in there and do some damage in order to keep yourself alive. And batteries also disappear after a limited time. So if you fire into a whole group of enemies and a battery pops up, well, now that battery is all the way over there, and you have to either kill the enemies first or find some other way to get to it in order to stay alive and stay in the game. But what's interesting is batteries drop where so the last enemy that's destroyed per threshold will drop the battery, but then that battery will slightly move away from you. So it's not like it'll just fly at you and everything's good. You gotta chase it down, and sometimes that involves, or most of the time that involves, putting yourself in danger, other kinds of danger, more danger, who knows. But you can't just stay in one place and do really well in this game. You gotta keep moving, and you gotta also embrace danger. But the other thing it does for anti-turtle design is that the energy power-ups, the little white crystals, they power up your main weapon. They're just called energy, and it's up to 3 levels. And so weapons get more range, they do more damage, and they also increase in firing rate. That's pretty cool. The energy drops also disappear after a limited amount of time, so it's kind of like in Geometry Wars 2 or Geometry Wars Galaxies, where they introduce these little pickup crystals where if you destroy an enemy, they leave a power-up or a pickup that you might want to grab, and that causes you to change your routes as you embrace danger, flying headlong into enemies to try to get these pickups. It's the same here. These power-ups help improve your offense, so you got to kind of figure out when you're gonna double back and pick them up, or how you're gonna leave it everyone into a circle. And finally, the power-ups. Those are the little yellow, red, and blue orbs. They periodically drop from destroyed enemies too, but power-ups never disappear, unlike energy and unlike batteries. So unless the level transforms and they fall into a hole, they're pretty much going to be there from the start of the level to the end. You can save a power-up for later, but if you do, it may be surrounded by enemies, or it may be put so far away that when you really want it, you have to go out of your way to get it, and every second kind of counts in this game. So that was today's episode of Design Over Time. You can follow us at Design Oriented, or you can follow me on Twitter. Send your questions my way, send them into the comments below, send them to me on Twitter, and I'll answer them. Don't worry about it. We got a new episode every day, and hopefully we're going to be making our way to some really interesting stuff. So you should follow along, share with your friends, and I will see you guys tomorrow on the next episode of Design Over Time.